So this is going to be a fun series. That's my prediction. And by fun, I mostly mean convicting or uncomfortable or maybe transforming. And so to kick this off, what we're going to do over the next 4 weeks, all about me and my big mouth, I'm going to ask you to do something that I don't think I've ever asked anyone to do at the beginning of a series ever before. And I want to ask you to repeat after me the title of the series. I'll say it first, and then you can say it, okay? Me and my big mouth. Now, this is very important, right? Because it's you and your big mouth. It's not your daughter and her big mouth, or your husband and his big mouth, or your boss and her big mouth, or your sister-in-law and her big mouth, or your son and his big mouth. This is all about you and your big mouth, me and my big mouth. So to make sure we personalize this whole thing, I want us to say this out loud again, but I really want to push on the word me and my, okay? So instead of you repeating it after me, let's just say it together with a little emphasis on me and my. Here we go. Me and my big mouth. Now, that's going to be challenging for the whole series. I promise you this will be challenging because every time I talk about relationships, every time I'm writing a message that's convicting to me, but I'm thinking about someone else, it's human that you're going to hear me say something, and you're going to sit here and think, oh boy, I hope she's listening. Oh boy, I hope he's listening. Oh boy, I wish he were here. Oh boy, I'm going to get the CD and hand it to him, right? Because we think about other people instead of thinking about ourselves whenever we talk about relationships. And I actually have the very best viewpoint of this for anyone because I get to stand here and watch you in real time as you react to what I'm saying. And there's two pretty common reactions whenever I'm talking about relationships. I have names for them. One of them is called the stare, right? Because here's what's happening. You're sitting next to the person that you're pretty sure needs to hear what I just said, and it just goes something like this. And you can imagine how ineffective the stare is. Right? Like I don't know if it's ever happened that because you stared at the person at the key point of my message that you thought they needed to hear, they're like, well, yeah, that's exactly what I needed to hear. I don't think it's ever worked, okay? But sometimes it's a little more aggressive than the stare, and instead it's the elbow, right? Like yeah, I mean, yeah, push them over, tackle them. Like sometimes it's aggressive, and I get to see it, right? And it's really interesting because I can tell whether like it's a boyfriend and girlfriend and they love each other, and it's like a good-natured elbow, or whether it's like, oh, there's some tension there because that was not good-natured. But here's what I think we have to do. You have to really pay attention. I have to really pay attention that this is me and my big mouth. So whenever you're listening along, and it's going to happen. Someone comes to mind besides you, and you think, oh man, I want them to hear this. I just think a really healthy reaction would be just elbow yourself. Right? Whenever you catch yourself thinking of someone else, just, kind of elbow yourself. I feel like for some of you, I should have you sign a waiver right now because you're going to hurt yourself elbowing yourself, and then you might sue us. I don't know. So, this is the point. Me and my big mouth. Now, there's one other really big idea. It's the whole idea behind this whole message, the first message of the series. And I'm just going to give you the bottom line right at the end. I'm going to have you kind of practice it with me. And this one won't be on the screens, but it's really simple. You can just follow after me. The idea is this. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Would you just say that with me? Quick to listen, slow to speak. Now, I'm going to add another element to it. I promise you I'm not going to embarrass you that you're not going to have to do something weird, but it really does help sometimes, and this may feel like middle school to you. And I want you to put kind of a hand motion with this simple phrase, quick to listen, slow to speak. And here's the motion, okay? I want you to have your hands kind of in front of you, maybe kind of closed up a little bit. And I want you to say, quick to listen, and open them very quickly, and then slow to speak, and close them back up. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Let's do it together. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Now, why is this so important? This is very important because the physical part of it reminds us that when we're in a conversation or a conflict, the potential to get angry, the potential to get defensive, the potential to close ourselves up happens very quickly. And what happens is we start to talk when that happens. And not only do we start to talk, we stop listening. It closes our mind. It closes our hearts. And so being quick to listen and then slow to speak is very important. So here's why this is so important. In conversation or in conflict, we want exactly what the other person wants. Now just think about it. This is obvious when you think about it. In conversation, especially when it gets close to conflict, we actually want exactly what the other person wants. And what that is we want to be heard. We want someone to listen to us. We want someone to pause long enough to understand what we're saying, to understand our perspective, to understand where we're coming from, to understand what happened to me that causes me to say these things. We want someone to wait long enough to be quick to listen to us and to be slow to speak. And if we get the sense that someone's actually listening and understanding, then we can make some progress. But if we don't get that sense, then it's very difficult. But this is the challenge, right? The exact thing that you want from someone else is also what they want from you. They want you to be quick to listen. They want you to understand where they're coming from. To wait long enough, not just to reply to their answer, but seem like you're soaking up and trying to understand where they're coming from, what part of their story shapes them this way. Everybody wants the same thing. We want the other person to be quick to listen and slow to speak. So would you say it out loud? Let's put our hands out one more time, just with me. Here we go. We go. Quick to listen, slow to speak. Now this is a very powerful idea because you can start to imagine. We could just stop here. And this is potentially transforming. I mean, in a relationship that's experiencing some tension and some frustration, if both parties would be quick to listen and slow to speak, I mean, that opens up wild possibilities. The best relationships that exist, your best relationships, are the places where you're quick to listen and slow to speak, and they're quick to listen and slow to speak. And these are the relationships in our lives that are marked with a lot of laughter, a lot of freedom. It means that nobody's walking around on eggshells around this relationship. I mean, it's the relationships that everybody wants when both parties do this. And some of you probably need to elbow yourself right now. Because you're thinking what I'm thinking. Like, well, of course, Greg, if both parties do it, it's going to work great. The problem is he won't do it. Or she won't do it. And you just thought of them, which is true. What if only one party does it? What if only one out of the two is quick to listen and slow to speak? Well, here's what I'd say. I can't guarantee that there would be transformation. I can't guarantee that. The best that I can do, and I think you'd resonate with this, is to say if you, just you, and the other person wouldn't, but if just you would be quick to listen and slow to speak, it at least creates the environment, because somebody needs to go first. It at least creates the environment where maybe transformation could take place. Where you going first by being quick to listen and slow to speak could open up a relationship. And at the very least, even if it doesn't ever lead to something in transformation, you could, about yourself, say, you know what? As far as it depended on me, I was trying to live at peace with everyone. And that's not a bad place to be in life. So quick to listen and slow to speak. Now, those of you who grew up in church are a few steps ahead of me. You're like, yeah, Greg, you're not going to try to tell people that's original with you, are you? No, I'm not going to try to tell you that's original with me. It is not original with me. This is a phrase that shows up in a section of the Bible that's absolutely fascinating. James wrote a letter. We have it in our New Testament, and a lot of you have heard me say this before. James was the brother of Jesus. He was the younger brother of Jesus, which creates all kinds of fascinating dialogue around this. But it's James who said, quick to listen, slow to speak. Now, I need you to think through this with me for just a minute. James was Jesus' brother. James, before Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead, did not believe that his brother was the Son of God. He didn't believe it. And, I mean, frankly, like if your brother told you he was the Son of God, you'd be like, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, no. And then James saw his brother die and was an eyewitness to the resurrection. He had breakfast with Jesus on the beach after the resurrection. And James became someone who believed that his brother was the Son of God. I mean, the resurrection is the thing that always transforms that. And then James became a leader in the church. He decided to go to bat for his brother, to be on his brother's team, and to give his whole life for this. He became one of the leaders of the church in Jerusalem. And this is just a little history. This isn't actually in the Bible. It's from Josephus, who's a Jewish historian. He said it's kind of wild because about 30 years after Jesus died, James had started a group of followers of Jesus in Jerusalem. He was well regarded. He was really appreciated. The Jewish leaders didn't like him, but the Roman governors were ultimately in charge, and so they kind of protected James. But in one window of time, there was a season where there was no Roman governor. And while there was no Roman governor, the Jewish leaders, the Sanhedrin, and the chief priest, whose name was Ananus, got together in the absence of a Roman governor and decided they were going to put James on trial. It was an illegal trial, but the result of the trial was that he would be executed. And so about 30 years after he saw his brother get executed, James was executed. It wasn't on a cross. James was stoned, right? Not stoned like stoned. I mean, picture this. Killed by people pelting you with rocks. And he went to his death, believing, proclaiming that his brother, Jesus, was the Son of God. That's the context of this. So James writes this in James chapter 1, verse 19. We're just going to spend time in a few verses today. You'll capture this. He says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this." Now, this is a big deal, right? He's saying, my dear brothers and sisters. He's writing to people who are followers of Jesus. That's kind of family of God language. Like, there's people who don't believe in Jesus. Those are respected people. Some of you may not believe in Jesus. That's respected. The advice that he's going to give works for you, whether you're a follower of Jesus or not. You might just walk out of here with something practical tonight. But he's writing it with a sense of, hey, if you're a follower of Jesus, then you'll want to build your life out this way. And he says, take note of this, everyone, no exceptions, everyone should be quick to listen and slow to speak. Now think about this. What's that mean? Quick to listen. It means be aggressive about listening. It means be the first one to listen. Be the one who listens and then works hard to listen some more, and then works hard to listen some more. Be quick to do that. Every chance you get, be quick to listen so that you can learn. And be slow to speak. Literally, what this means is be late to speak. Take all those opinions that you have inside of you, all those viewpoints, all those things you're pretty sure you're right about. You might be right about them. Just pause and be late to speak. I think here's what it's saying. This will be very important if you're ever in an argument. He's saying, let the moment pass. Let the moment pass. When you're ready, you're loaded. You know what's right. It's starting to get intense, and there's a conflict, and someone says something, and you have the perfect phrase. I mean, it's on the tip of your tongue, and you can win the argument. He says, let the moment pass. Let the moment pass. Be quick to listen, but slow to speak. Now, this is incredibly difficult to do, right? So I'm a father, right? And I've been, raising my kids. And is this true in every family? Like, parents want their kids to be quick to listen and slow to speak, and kids want their parents to be quick to listen and slow to speak. And this happens in my house. Like, I try to teach my kids things. I'm always trying to capture moments. I call them life lessons with dad. You can imagine how much my kids love the phrase life lessons with dad. My daughter, I think she was 7 years old when I said, hey, Abby, we talked. That was a good talk, right? I just kind of think of these as life lessons with dad. And she said to me, 7 years old, she said, I know, Dad, episode 592. I'm like, it doesn't bother me that much. Sounds like she's getting it. But think about this. Like if you're a high school student or a middle school student or something like that, think about how powerful this would be. If when your parents are giving you this life lessons thing, or they're ranting about something, or they're lecturing, or they're doing this or that, think about how powerful it would be when they finish talking. If you say to them, hey, I'm not sure if I agree with that or not, but maybe you could help me understand some more. Could you keep talking? Could you explain it again? Could you explain it in a little different way? Because I'm not sure I see it, but I want to listen and I want to understand. High school students, if you do that with your parents, they will faint. Right? And then you get to help them out like it's. But here's the thing. The moment I tell the story that way, right? I'm the parent and I have a high school student, and here's what I know about myself. The worst parenting moves I've made. And I've made some. The absolute worst parenting moves I've made were when I was quick to speak and slow to listen. And to go back and apologize and say, listen, I talked too soon. And you could justify it, right? I'm like, what? I'm the one who has the experience. I'm the one who has the insight. I've been through your stage of life before. You don't even have full frontal lobe development yet. You should listen to me. And I'm probably right. But I don't know if you've ever noticed this about relationships. We can write the person we love right out the door. You can be right. You can be right with your son, and you can write your son right out the door. You can be right with your wife. You can be perfectly right, and you want to show her that you're right, and you're so right that you write her right out of the marriage. Some of you have all-star employees, and they're amazing, but you can't help yourself about how every time that something comes out of your mouth, it's correcting them, and you're right. And I'm telling you, you can write your all-star employee right to your competitor. It's entirely possible to do. You can write someone right out the door. And so James says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Now, this part of the phrase is probably both a result of being slow to speak. You'll become slower to become angry. And it's also something to place into our consciousness to say, yeah, because when anger flashes, that's no good. Now, anger shows up in different ways. Some of you are temper tantrum anger people. I won't make you raise your hand, okay? But like you just blow up. That's what anger looks like for you. Others of you are like huff and puff anger people. Like you're communicating it. Like you're not yelling. I just saw that elbow. Did you see that right there? I should not call people out during the message. That was a mistake. I'm sorry. Take that out of the video. Don't put that online. Oh my goodness. Oh, let me reset here just for a second. Yeah. So anyway, what I was saying was, huff and puff people, right? So there's huff and puff people. There's passive aggressive people. Some of you just mope around. Like you just mope around when you're angry, and you want your boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse, kids, you want them to ask you what's wrong, so you can say nothing. So they can keep asking them. Like anger shows up in different ways. It's not just blowing up, right? But if you could become slow to become angry, wow, that's really potentially powerful. Now, I'm going to fill in the next couple blanks for you here in a second, and you're going to think this is so obvious. I hope you'll think it's so obvious, but I need us to all think about this together a little bit, okay? So here's something about human nature. Everything everyone does makes sense to them. Wow, that's deep, huh? Everything everyone does makes sense to them. Not everything everyone does makes sense to me. I'll look at people at times and say, that doesn't make any sense to me. But it makes sense to them, or they wouldn't do it, right? And it's not just that everything everyone does makes sense to them. We could say it this way. Everything everyone says makes sense to them. Whatever comes out of their mouth, it makes sense to them, right? Let me push it a little bit further. Everything everyone believes makes sense to them. It's one of the reasons why, for me, I try to be a respecter of all people's beliefs, even if it disagrees with me. If you're not a follower of Jesus, hopefully you've heard me say this over and over again. Listen, I respect that. I respect the journey you're on. I assume that you have a good reason for why you believe what you believe or don't believe what I believe, because everyone has a reason. And sometimes these beliefs are like religious beliefs, right? Sometimes these beliefs are like political beliefs. Sometimes these beliefs are like money beliefs. And I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, but when someone sees the world so differently than you see it, when someone sees the world so differently than you see it, you probably say or think something like this: I don't know why they do that. I don't know why they do that. I cannot figure out why they do that. Or maybe you'd say, I don't know why they say that. When that comes out of their mouth, that makes no sense to me. I don't know why they would say that. You might think about someone you love and you think, I don't know why they believe that. I don't know why they believe that. And a lot of times when we get into that mode and we say, well, I don't know why they do that, we think in our head, if they just believed like I believed, then the world would be right. If they just do what I do, then the world would be right. And the solution to this is I need to go inform them so that now they do the right thing, say the right thing, and believe the right thing. But we should pause just for a moment, shouldn't we? Because even when we hear the words we say, they might be informative. I don't know why they do that, say that, or believe that. So the first three words here are really important. I don't know. I don't know why. And if you don't know something, then maybe the right posture is to listen. Maybe the right posture is to learn. Maybe the right posture is to be curious. If you don't know why someone would do that or say that or believe that, wouldn't it be a smart thing to do to be quick to listen and slow to speak? Some of you read leadership books, business books. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People has been a great book. I'd recommend it to anybody, just a really powerful book. The 5th habit in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is seek to understand before you seek to be understood. Take the posture of someone who's wildly curious. Ask a lot of questions. And then ask some more questions. And make sure that this is how you'll know when you've listened long enough. Make sure you can say back to them what they believe or what they think or what they're saying or what they feel, so that there's a common understanding. If you listen that long, if you're quick to listen, and you decide I'll be late to speak, it potentially transforms some things. So let's just kind of go with this lesson. The quicker we listen, the more we learn, and the less angry we become. The quicker we listen, the more we learn, and the less angry we become. Now, I could stop here And if I stopped here, I imagine there's people in the room and be like, yep, that's great. Good life lesson. That'll probably help me out. Still time for dinner tonight. Came to church. We got through the Jesus stuff pretty fast. Then it got practical. I liked that a lot. Like we could stop here, but here's the thing. James doesn't stop here. I mean, this is practical and it's life and it'll help you this week. But there's more to it than just practicality. And James wants to kind of enter into the conversation of why. Why would you be quick to listen and slow to speak? And this is very powerful because some of us might be sitting here right now thinking, yeah, quick to listen, slow to speak. That's a good strategy. That's a good strategy because if I listen a little longer and I act like I'm curious, then someone will feel like I understand them, and then I'll get to say what I want to say, and maybe they'll listen to me, and then we'll be able to move forward with the way I want things to go. It might even be a great strategy. And James says, no, that's not what this is. This isn't self-help. This isn't a strategy to ultimately get the thing you want. This is what he says. He says, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Quick to listen, slow to become angry, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Because when you're angry, it does not produce the thing God wants. Now, this is an enormous question. The question is, what do we want? And what does God want? And anytime there's some conflict in a relationship, you have to think there's potentially 3 agendas going on here, right? If it's me and my wife, there's my agenda, and I'm pretty sure I'm right about something. I want her to know that I'm right. There's her agenda. She's pretty sure she's right about something, and she would think it would be successful if she could get me to come to what's right. But then there's God's agenda. God has something in mind for the conversation I'm having with my wife, and it might be, I'm just suggesting this, it might be something entirely different than what either Jenny or I have in mind. And this is why you would be quick to listen and slow to speak. You see, I've won arguments with my wife before. And it didn't turn out that great. I mean, some of you have done this. I won the argument. She had nothing to come back with. Where is she? She left. Oh, I don't know where she is. She's gone, but I won. I was right. That's what I was going for, because I have an agenda to be right, and she had an agenda to be right, and round 1, Pastor Greg, he won that one. But remember, you can write the people you love right out the door. And what James is getting at here is to say, hey, maybe we should lift this conversation up a little bit. Maybe you should think about your relationship a little differently. And maybe we could ask this question. What's more important? To be right at somebody, or to be right with somebody? To win the argument, or to have a great relationship? And this is so powerful, because some of you have become very skilled at winning arguments, and you're losing relationships. You see, you kind of have to ask the question, if you're a follower of Jesus, did Jesus come to be right? Is that why Jesus came? To be right? Jesus didn't come to be right. If Jesus had wanted to come to be right, he could have come for about 30 minutes, announced how right he was, done anything that he wanted, and been out. He certainly would not have died on the cross if Jesus came to be right. It seems as if Jesus, God, has a different agenda for us than we might have for ourselves. Jesus, when he gave his ultimate command to you and I, he said, just as I have loved you, so you love one another. Here's what he didn't say. He didn't say, so just as I convinced you, so you go convince the others. Because for Jesus, this is everything. It was not about being right. His mission was to reconcile, was to put people back in relationships with one another and with God. And to say, you know what, sometimes we can agree, sometimes we can disagree. It's not about being right, it's about being reconciled. And if you're going to do that, if you want to value a relationship thriving more than getting your way or proving your point, you will take an entirely different approach. Here's the approach James suggests. He says this, therefore, get rid of all moral filth. Get rid of is, the image is take it off. It's like you have a jacket on. Take that off. And if you read this just randomly as a verse, you might think moral filth means like, oh, cheating on your wife or something like that. Don't do that either, but that's not what he's talking about. The moral filth is the evil that's so prevalent. It's the malice toward one another. It's the arrogance that says, I need to have my voice heard. You need to listen to me rather than me listen to you. He says, take that off and humbly accept the word planted in you. See, the word humbly is everything. Because when you and I are humble, I'm actually more concerned about you than I am about me. That's what humility is. Maybe said even better, when I'm humble, I'm more concerned about we and our relationship than I am about me. And he says, this is so powerful, he says, the way to do this is to accept the word that was planted in you. Now, what is the word? Well, you might think of it as the scriptures. That's fair, but Jesus himself was the word. And so this is what he's saying. Maybe this is great practical advice. Maybe it'll help your relationships even if you're not a follower of Jesus. But if you're a follower of Jesus, our whole approach to relationships is rooted in this. That they'll know we are Christians by our love. Not by our proof, not because we're right, not because I'm smarter than anybody else, but because of our love, because I'm interested in reconciling relationships. And if you just think about what Jesus did when he came and modeled this, what his brother saw firsthand. Think about this. Jesus showed up on planet Earth, and for 30 years, he listened. For 30 years. Quick to listen. Slow to speak. And after he had listened for 30 years, then he began to speak. And guess what happened? The moment he began to speak, people flocked to him. I mean, people who were religious people flocked to him, but people who had nothing to do with religion at all flocked to him. Everyone loved Jesus' teaching. Why do you think that they loved Jesus' teaching? I think I know why. It's because they felt like he understood them. He had been listening for 30 years. And then he started to teach them. Some of the things that are written about Jesus' teaching is to say, Jesus was not like the other teachers. You know the other teachers that just pick up the book and just say, this is what you need. He had listened. And people who were nothing like Jesus really liked Jesus. And then in the most critical moments of his life, for example, when he's standing before Pilate, falsely accused, with the chance to speak and save his own life, he's quiet. He's quick to listen. Slow to speak. My friends, I think this is good practical advice. But if you're a follower of Jesus, this is rooted in the one that we follow. We have the same ends in mind that he has, reconciliation instead of being right. And we have the means by which to do it. And so I just want to end in maybe the most practical way. Here's the question. I want to be right with who? And every one of you can pick a relationship in your life right now that is not marked by continuous laughter. It's not marked by, we never walk on eggshells around each other. It's not marked by an ease and a reconciliation. It's marked by something else. And I think it's what I want to ask you to do. So one more time, will you do this? Will you do this with me? Let's hold our hands like this. Some of you are like this. You're like, nope, not doing that. It's okay. It's okay. Quick to listen. Slow to speak. Say it with me. Quick to listen. Slow to speak. Heavenly Father, help us. When we want to apply this to someone else, not while we're sitting here, but while we're in the conversation, help us. We'll need your power to be curious, to not be critical, to not think winning the argument is the goal, to be quick to listen and slow to speak. In Jesus' name, amen.